Please rise and join me in this Pledge of Allegiance. All right. We have 3 recognitions. We're going to start with the National FFA Conference Performer.
Thank you very much. And yeah, this is an exciting one. So tonight there's going to be this recognition and a report. Both are celebrations of our ag science program, agricultural science, and FFA. And this first celebration is a celebration of amazing talent, but I am going to turn it over to Mr. Ballard to introduce this amazing talent.
Well, good evening. Stand next to me. You know, we love having the opportunity to celebrate some of our extremely talented.
When is it that you play?
Trombone.
No, when?
Oh, when?
Yes.
Oh, I performed in October to November. It was October, I think, 27th to November 3rd. There were 5 days in there where we performed like 10 to 15 times for everybody at the convention, and sometimes we were playing for just people out and about in Indianapolis. But in total, there were probably 70,000 people there at the convention, and almost all of them probably watched us perform.
That's great. Thanks for representing our community.
Yeah, thank you.
So next up up, you want to do the law enforcement appreciation next, Tara?
You bet. Tomorrow is National Law Enforcement Day, and in honor of our 2 school resource officers, just wanted to bring them this evening to put some names with faces. Do you guys want to just stand up? I won't make you prepare anything at the microphone, so don't panic. Officer Tracy Hall, many of you are probably familiar with her face. She is housed out of our middle school, supports our middle school and elementaries. But new to us this year is Officer Andrew Traeger, who is at our high school. So huge thanks to you both for your community, for your service to our community, and most importantly to our schools.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's a well-earned, well-deserved appreciation there. All right, last up, we have the AP honor roll. Dave?
I'm sorry, we're gonna actually move that to the next week.
Oh. Oh, you meant move it to February. Okay, that's fine. All right, that's 3 minutes added to that meeting. All right, very good. Do we have any citizens request to speak?
Are there any citizens that wanted a chance to speak tonight?
All right, don't see any. Then we'll move on to the Ag Science Update. Now that's Dan.
Yes, that is me. Thank you very much. And this is another celebration. It's a curricular report, but certainly a celebration. So I'm going to invite Andy Cuffle, our agricultural science teacher, up with Keegan and Cece, 2 students, and both FFA members and students in the agricultural science program. And you can certainly sit at the table if you want, a little bit easier. Keegan said something during his presentation. He said, "Why not?" And in taking these opportunities, seeing these opportunities, seizing these opportunities, and I think that Andy embodies that sort of spirit of saying, what are these opportunities, what could we do with this? And she's going to share a little bit about what she was able to do with the Ag Science program. It's been absolutely remarkable. So I'm going to turn it over to her to share a little bit about agricultural science and FFA.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Beautiful.
Okay, perfect. So as Dave said, there's been a lot of change in the ag department in the past couple of years. This is my 3rd year at Hudson, and we've made quite a few changes. If you see on our beautiful flow chart, we've added quite a few courses and created set pathways for students to go through. So they start with their Intro to Ag course, which the first time it was taught was my first year teaching here. And then they move to Animal Science 1, Plant Science 1, and Wildlife and Natural Resources based on their interests. Then moving on to Animal Science 2 and Plant Science 2. And then lastly, a new course for next year that all of you lovely people approved was our Agricultural Research and Development capstone, for, specifically for seniors with an agricultural passion. And it's really, really brought in. So my first year here, I wasn't even teaching full-time ag courses. I was also teaching a little bit of science and had a study hall. And my vet science class only had 12 students in it. And now we've expanded so much that a science teacher also is teaching some ag courses because I'm overloaded. We have over 375 high school students who are taking agriculture courses right now. And it just keeps going. Something to showcase is the Ag Ed model. That's that 3-circle model there. That it has classroom instruction, SAE, and FFA or leadership. SAE is all Ag Ed students also have essentially a passion project in agriculture outside of school hours that they keep records on to dig deeper and explore. So that could be working at a local horse farm. It could be working at a vet clinic. It could be starting their own business. Having their own garden, etc., whatever their passion is, and they can earn awards through that as well, through FFA, and fully round out their agricultural education. But enough for me. These 2 have taken tons of ag courses, have deep dived into FFA, and they're way more exciting to listen to. But feel free to take a look, and we've got several other slides. I know Cece was going to chat with you a little bit about her experience with taking ag courses, because she's taken almost everything up there, and about the ag research and development.
So, like Ms. Kuffel said, I've pretty much taken almost every ag class that there is, and I only started taking them last year. And next year, I'm super excited for the senior capstone capstone because like not only is it like a new class where I can like explore more into like the world and FFA, but I can also like add that into like more of like where I want to study for school, because since Cuffle has she's kind of worn off on me a little bit, and I've wanted to become an egg teacher after starting from wanting to be a conservation warden, kind of turned it over more to egg education world. Then that up there, that's our, it's more of a, like, what would you, like a science fair type project. So we get to compete against other, well, it's not really competing, it's more like this showcase displaying what we've worked on. So that is Xander up there. He did a independent study for a class last year, and he went to a, what was it? Oh,
To state
well, no,
convention.
it was, he went to some like snake
Carpenter
thing.
Nature Center.
Yeah, that. He went there and he worked with the snakes. He looked at like their behaviors through like the changes in like sheds and like the different things that he did with them. He monitored to see like the changes and all that. And he ended up winning second or third last year at state with his display there.
So something cool is we currently don't have a course to deep dive on the behavior of snakes. That is not something that is in our curriculum. And he had kind of capped out on courses he could take and that were in his interest area. So we were able to actually try out the ag research and development, the structure of that course as an independent study for him. And so he got to explore his passion area in still a structured environment. That he wrote a 14-page research paper, competed in front of judges, displayed with his whole board, and it was a semester-long, in-depth project that each of our seniors are going to be able to do next year in their passion areas. And then if you want to tap to the next slide, we can have Keegan take it away on the FFA.
All right, so some of the things that we do in FFA are our Kids Fest, where we have had a lot of people come and see all the things we have to do with FFA. You can see there we have some live animals there and other games that we do to try and get people to learn more about FFA. We have our soil team up there in a hole, and they did very well. We have our, was it fall leadership, and that was at Chippewa Falls, and you can see everybody there. We all got to go to different classrooms, and with the state officers, we got to learn about a bunch of different things about teamwork and how to lead. And then, yeah, there's me for band. So yeah, there's a wide variety of things that we can do with FFA, and there's more to come. So, yeah.
Do you have any questions for any of our members?
President?
Yes, Megan?
I just want to say thank you for coming tonight. These classes look fantastic. I wish I could take them. And when we toured the high school last spring with Representative Tiffany, we popped into your class and I was like, this is so cool. I want to just stay here and see what the students are learning. So thank you so much for sharing, and thanks to the students who are exploring all this. And I'm excited to hear how those capstones go next year.
Mr. President, I'm just curious, and this might be a question more for Mr. Grambo or someone else in the administration, but given our close proximity to UWRF and their focus on ag, do we have any partnership discussions in process where we can maybe further what our students can study through AP or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when Andy came forward with this new course proposal, that was one of the first questions we asked. How can we explore dual credit opportunities? So yes, we are going to be exploring that. No, we haven't done anything specifically yet, but it is on the radar.
Well, thank you very much for, telling us what this is like, what it means to you. And I also share in that. I think I've said it 100 times in the years I've been on, that I was in FFA and competed. We did the soil testing, you showed the one team in the hole there, but we never got to play instruments, which is probably a good thing, because I can't play any instruments. But we did do, meat judging and know your cuts of meat, but that, all of that is, pretty worthwhile stuff. But I really like the capstone project, getting into details and stuff that shows people's, passions, and that's what we want. Is we don't just educate and give you information. We want to, foster those passions so that they take off in the future. And who knows, you might be pursuing master's programs in something very detailed that could change, our whole economy. So anyway, thank you for your participation in your report. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now one of others that were recognized, the law enforcement folks are here to talk about the school resource officer's introduction to DARE.
Yep, this time I'm gonna have Sally Pernot, our prevention specialist, and Officer Hall come up to talk about, and Andrew will hang around if he wants to for questions. To talk about DARE. Last time you saw some of these folks, we were talking about reactive things we were doing and not proactive. So here we're bringing you tonight some proactive things. They're gonna share part of the DARE training that Tracy was able to complete. It's different if some of you participated in DARE when we were all kids going through school, so I'm gonna give it to them to share, and then time for questions.
All right. So we're gonna bring, thank you. We're bringing DARE back to Hudson, or into Hudson here. I just got done with a 2-week training in October. I'm pretty excited to bring this back. DARE began in 1983 in Los Angeles. That's the old school DARE that you guys may have known, like the Just Say No, the resistant type thing, where now it's morphed into more of a curriculum of teaching like risk and consequences, and a lot more involved throughout. So it's a lot better curriculum, data-based, things of that. We are responsible for decision-making skills, and to help them lead safe and healthy lives. Not just focused on drugs, it's more even the vaping, respect of others, cyberbullying. It's a lot wider spectrum of things. It is a K through 12, which is nice. We were in Counteract previously, but that was more focused just for 5th grade, where this encompasses all grade levels, which is really nice. It talks about 2,000 law enforcement agencies delivering this program to over 1.2 million students in over 5,000 communities, and it's growing rapidly. This new program that's pushed out is growing a whole lot more and faster.
And now that this is a new evidence-based curriculum, we were able to write it into the AODA grant through DPI, and that's how we were able to pay for training and purchase some of the materials.
As I said, it kind of focuses on all-encompassed, the opioids, drugs, teen suicide, social media, and vaping. And it is taught by us as police officers. We have to have so many years of experience before we can even go to training, and then it's a 2-week training, and then we do classes throughout every year to keep up to date. The overview, so the early grades is going to be your pre-K through 4th grade. Pre-K to 2nd is going to be more of our poster cards. They're big poster cards where we facilitate conversation with the kiddos, more on safety, when to call 911, feelings, how to respond, things of that. 3rd through 4th grade is a little bit more curriculum based, but it's a standalone program. It's not the building blocks that like the elementary school is for 5th and 6th grade. That's what's this thing. So it's a 10-week course, 45-minute lessons, and every day we'll work through, or every class period we'll work through the binder, and it's a building block curriculum. Same with the middle school. Middle school is also a 10-week building block, so they build off of each other. Curriculum, it is the fastest growing one in the US right now for the middle school level. It's growing rapidly. The high school curriculum are standalone curriculum. So if we're having issues with vaping, we can focus on that and put those curriculums in. If we have other issues that are getting highlighted, we can focus just on those. We can pick and choose what we want to present. And then there's other things that we can do for like parent-teacher conferences, different community outreach stuff they have as well. So that's pretty much what I did. It is multicultural. They also have them in different languages, the workbooks. So then we can get those out to Spanish-speaking students as well. It is evidence-based, and we do have to be DARE certified to be able to present it. So it can't be like the AODA teacher or counselor here can't do it. We have to.
Okay, I have a question about that. So you are going there once a week for 45 minutes straight. It's not like broken into three 15-minute sessions or anything. You're going once a week for 10 weeks for 45 minutes.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep. Next slide. So our next steps is I'm going to pilot it at Hudson Prairie. We came to the conclusion of Hudson Prairie for the proximity is I'm primarily at the middle school, so it's within proximity of me, so I can be readily available. Plus there's 4 homerooms there, so I get more reps in there as well and get more of a collection of students to see how this is going to work. I start that in February, and we will go through beginning of May when we'll have our graduation. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we will work with the other principals and other 5th grade teachers in the other buildings and hopefully get this implemented in all the buildings starting in the fall and split them up between some of the schools will be in the fall and some of the schools would be in the spring. And then we'll go that way.
I was just curious, obviously I haven't seen DARE, the logo or anything. Is this a resurgent, like another rollout from that programming that is now has a new life? Or you had mentioned you were using Counteract or something?
So we went to Counteract. I don't know why. When I started, we were Counteract. When I started with Hudson PD. So I was doing Counteract well before a school resource officer. But I don't know, did we ever do DARE here in Hudson? Do you know? Anyone? I don't know if we did.
I'm not sure about DARE. It sounded like we were doing Counteract. It was one of those pre-COVID things, and it fizzled away.
COVID, yep.
My understanding also, it's not evidence-based, so we weren't able to get grant funding to continue with that. So there's very specific rules on what we're looking at for that. So we wanted to look at some K-12 systems, and DARE came to our attention with the new version, especially being evidence-based, knowing that we could have the dollars to support it this route.
And Officer Hall mentioned the graduation piece of it too. One of the things that we're really hopeful for is that you can really become a DARE community. You get buy-in from families, and it's a big celebration piece too. So this is more of just an all-inclusive. Counteract, I think, was I don't know much about it. I think it was a good program. It was originally from Hazelden, but they are no longer updating it. And so anything that we are working with from Counteract is old. And this is kind of a living program.
And Counteract was primarily just 5th grade. Where here I'll be able to ideally go into the K through 2 grades and kind of start implementing the DARE conversations and then work our way through and do elementary school and middle school, and then if Officer Traeger needs to hit something up at the high school level, we can get to that point, but make it like a culture in all through grades.
I just want to say thank you for putting in the time to go to the training. I did DARE in my younger years. This new curriculum sounds great. How you're really looking at the emotional issues that are related to making safe choices. And I'm very excited about these activities or talks for families. I think, you know, I have 2 young kids, and you think, how do I broach this subject? When do I bring it up? What's the age-appropriate way to talk about it without freaking kids out, you know? So it's, when you're parents, you're figuring out for the first time how to do this, so getting guidance is going to be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You go to the next slide.
So this is not related to DARE necessarily, but just a follow-up after our talk last year when we came to you guys and shared everything that we were doing. We do now have vape detectors installed at the high school and the middle school. They are not in every bathroom, but we put them as many as we could with the budget that we had. Sorry. So we have those going. At the middle school this year, they have been highly, highly successful at deterring any vaping behavior. That's been really wonderful. At the high school, they are alerting approximately 10 times a day. Would you agree with that? Yeah. One thing we did learn pretty quickly is that, like, aerosol deodorants, like Axe body spray or something like that, does also set it off. But that is kind of where we're at now, and just trying to respond to all those alerts as best we can.
Okay, and so what is being done to address that? And I don't even know, is 10 alerts a day, is that high for somebody from, for a district our size, or for a high school our size?
Yeah, I would say for our student side of the high school.
There we go.
I would say 10 is, yeah, about average for what we do a day. And we're writing municipal citations for nicotine vaping devices, as well as THC vaping devices we're finding very frequently with our students. So these, I can highly attest to that these are a great investment for our school, and I think all of our bathrooms at the high school should have them.
So when an alert goes off, if it is during a class period, then administration and Officer Traeger goes back on cameras to see who was walking in or out, and then conducts a search. If it's during passing time, though, with 1,800 kids walking in and out, that can be a real challenge. For this year, we were at 16 tobacco or drug use offenses. That is out of date as of right now. Nicotine use is down, though, so I think what Officer Traeger and I are seeing is when they are vaping, it's most commonly THC, and with the Delta 8 and Delta 9 products that you can purchase in town, we're seeing a lot of that, and I think that that will not change. But yes, nicotine use on the most recent Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which we just got in December, showed that that was down to 12%, which is good. We also have now at our disposal, the county purchased a program called Cognito. It's a virtual, like, decision-making kind of module that students can go through once they've been caught. Unfortunately, as soon as they purchased that, the company announced that they are going out of business this spring. So we kind of have one time to give it a shot and see how we like it, and then maybe look around for something different that we could use when that does sunset.
Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I want to thank you for your report. I think, you know, we use the term, you know, social, emotional, and there are some folks out there who are bashing that, saying that we need to, you know, take that out of our schools and just stick with curriculum, pure curriculum, so to speak. But to me, this is a prime example of the success it can have when you are teaching this stuff. 10 lessons, 45 minutes, that's 7.5 hours over the course of an entire school year, right? So that, to me, is a small investment of time, but it can pay big dividends. And I don't know what our average parent time is in talking about this stuff, but I'm afraid in some families it's not always. It takes teamwork, though, with families to get this to stick. So I think we need to hold up our end from the school's part of this, as far as teaching the downside, so to speak, to you know, risky behavior, and, you know, the big upside, just leading healthy lives. So I like that emphasis in this program. Anything else? Otherwise, thank you very much for your report and for all your work. All right. Next up, Tracy, we have the independent auditor. I see Jonathan's here, and looks like he's brought company.
Thank you for having me. And here I thought you just brought all the security to have, you know, all my adoring fans at bay for my presentation. So, thank you for having me. My name is Jonathan Sherwood. I'm a principal with Clifton Larson Allen. I'm in charge of the day-to-day operations of the actual audit and then take responsibility over the actual audit report as well and its full issuance. So during my presentation, I know there's a few faces here. I try to take things fairly high level and kind of go as quickly as I can, but still give you the detail that is really pertinent to the decision makers here. That being said, if there's any questions throughout my presentation, feel free to stop me, ask me a question. If I don't know the answers, that's why I brought reinforcements with me. So thank you, Tracy. Want to start off with just thanking you for obviously having me here tonight, and is also thanking all the district staff that makes the audit process run as smoothly as possible. From an independent auditor standpoint, we need to come in here and actually audit the records of the district, and having them in the best shape possible makes our job go a lot smoother. There's a lot of brand new regulations, DPI requirements, as well as accounting regulations and different accounting standards that we have to implement that's enough of a challenge than coming into some districts where maybe they don't even have cash reconciled for the year. So from even the very basic building blocks, Hudson's in very good hands and all the records are in very good shape. Tracy and her team and all the other district staff that we have to deal with and ask some kind of annoying questions at times. I'm certainly the necessary evil at times. I understand that, so we very much appreciate it. Just to start off my presentation, just a couple of housekeeping items for us, so to speak. In terms of the audit report, so when we look at audited financial statements, the technical document that CLA owns and we actually grant is only like a 3-page document. It's the audit opinion of the financial statements. It's our opinion over the district's amounts and the district's disclosures in the 95 or 100-page report. So of that 3-page report, our audit opinion basically states that we're issuing an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. So that's the highest level of assurance that an independent auditor can grant over financial statements. That's our goal. DPI won't let us accept or won't accept anything less than that. So we're happy to report that we were able to issue our report by their 12/15 deadline and meeting all of the rigorous standards that we're required to meet. As part of our audit as well, we issue a couple other reports or a couple other letters. One of them being our management representation letter, the management letter overall, basically communicating to you folks if there's any major red flags or items that would need to be that are important enough to be raised up and discussed in a meeting such as today. Normally in the past in my presentation, there's usually 1 or 2 items here that we always just have to talk about, and it's fairly common a district your size to have at least 1, if not 2 findings or material weaknesses that we would discuss. This year is a completely different because we actually don't have to report any findings for us this year, which is a tremendous accomplishment. A district your size usually does have a few hiccups here or there of, from the accounting profession, it's kind of almost a gotcha of, well, yeah, technically you're pretty good overall, but what about, did you think about X, Y, Z? So we're happy to report that we don't even have to report material audit adjustments, which is probably the most common thing that we have to report at meetings like this. So through the course of our audit work, we didn't record any or we didn't propose any audit adjustments that were material enough that would impact the reader of your financial statements. Sure, there was things that we had to work with Tracy and her team to figure out and readjust and get in line with DPI's rigorous iron thumb of where they want things specifically recorded. But that's just the end of the day didn't report that, or doesn't change your bottom line by enough to really swing anybody's decisions. So that's a tremendous accomplishment. Another one of the reports that we have to issue is just a compliance report. So since the district receives federal funding, if it's over a certain level of federal funding, we have to then do what's known as a federal single audit. That single audit limit is just $750,000 of federal dollars. So every year, for the most part, or every year, Hudson is going to have a single audit. And as part of that, then we have to go through and evaluate those various federal programs, do a selection, a risk-based assessment of which programs are going to be more risky or less risky, and then make a selection of what programs we have to test. So in the current year, we actually had, or the prior year, I should say, in fiscal year 2023, we selected child nutrition program just due to the amount of funding that's received, and then the ESSER funding, which is all linked to COVID and some rigorous federal standards. So you can only imagine some of the requirements we had to look at there. Crystal clear instructions by our wonderful federal government on that one. But again, just due to the level of funding and some of the complex issues that we have to look into, we just need to make sure that the district is operating those programs efficiently, evaluating the eligibility appropriately, and then spending those federal funds on their designated purposes. So of those programs that we did have to test, there's no findings or no compliance issues we have to report for you for fiscal year 2023. A couple other things that we end up assisting the district with as well is working with DPI and filing the 1506 AC report, which is the audited certification of the district financials, just on DPI side that they used then to help calculate state aids and kind of work through that process. And then lastly, because of that federal single audit, we have to make a federal reporting back to them for the federal data collection form, which has actually been filed. We have to jump through some hoops with a brand new federal system there as well, doing an auditor certification. I need to tell Tracy that she needs to log on and do her certification as well. So you have to do that tomorrow. So all that, just one more button to click for you on that one. So all that being said, is there any questions on that? Otherwise, I can dive into some financial highlights for you here, kind of bore you a little bit with a few numbers. Second item here for you is just the general fund. So when I talk general fund for DPI's purposes, they mean both. They're separate. The general fund, Fund 10, and then Fund 27 is the special education fund. When we report things in the financial statements, we actually combined those funds together because that's all of the education for, so to speak, for all students in the district. So these numbers reflect both 10 and 27 activity. The first section here, you've got your summary balance sheet. And again, this is a spot in time. This is as of 6/30 year-end numbers. The next day they obviously all change. So when we're looking at this from an audit perspective, we look at trends. What is something that really jumps off the page, and can we explain it, or what kind of looks a little funny? Really overall, there isn't a ton of change overall that you're going to look at and say, oh my gosh, this is kind of really jumping off the page at me, and really question a lot of that stuff. Number one is going to be cash. You're going to say, okay, that probably increased a lot. And there'll be a few other items here that definitely explains why my cash proceeds in the general fund, or my cash balances, are greater than they were the year before, or customarily in the historical summary here. So then it's just a matter of, when we're looking at financial health of the district, we look at the general fund, and that's the true operations of your district. Where do you fall in your reserves at the end of the year? So that's that fund balance section where you start seeing that first shaded line up there for you. So fund balance, again, that's like your equity in your private businesses that you would see, or your net income type items are being recorded in there. So your fund balance is going to fall into a number of categories here. The first being non-spendable, meaning that we can't rely on those resources. They might have been spent already, or we need to wait for something to happen in order to free up those resources. Maybe a collectability issue for a long-term receivable, or in this case, we've already spent that resource in a prepaid item, is what the non-spendable item is there for you. The next bucket is restricted. So the restricted funds there, meaning there's restrictions placed on there that these are reserves, again, that they're going to be used in a future fiscal period, and they're set aside for a restricted state grant program at this point, which I believe this one is Getting Kids Ahead. So the money was received during fiscal year 2023. Some of that has actually been incurred and expensed during this year, but not all of it. It needs to be set aside to fund that going forward due to the state mandate, and it must be used for that. The next bucket that we're using is the committed, what's known as committed resources. So that means that there's formal action at the board level that's committed dollars for future purposes. The dollar amount isn't necessarily discussed every year, but the purpose is in place, and it requires formal board action to take that commitment and change it to something else. So the board does have the ability to change this and use those resources for something else, so you should choose. The two commitments that we have to report are self-insurance and then the long-term facilities planning, or capital repairs and maintenance type items. So those two items are reported there for those specific purposes. The next section, which is a newer one that we haven't used here at the district in a while, is assigned. So the assigned fund balance means that, again, these resources have come into the district, they're set aside for a specific purpose, but it doesn't necessarily need a formal board action to make them move. Bonnie and Tracy and the finance team has been designated by district policy that they can then kind of direct those resources as necessary. So it's just a little bit more of a restriction than just, oh, well, the last category is by default assigned fund balance. That's just, in general, that's what's left over that can be used for whatever purpose. So the assigned fund balance, to back up to what that actually consists of, is actually 2 items. And we felt it necessary, kind of a conversation between Tracy and myself, is the biggest item there to the tune of $1.8 million of that $2.3 million that you see there is for insurance proceeds from the storm damage, the hailstorm and whatnot. So the reason that exists is, you know, the hailstorm came through. We had the insurance company came and just wrote the district a check for $7.5 million essentially, and said, go start fixing things. It's been tracked. The process is in place. That was what was left over of that initial, hey, let's start making repairs and figure out where you're at type perspective. So technically, it's not restricted by anybody. You could do it like I did in my personal house. If my rain gutters got dinged up and I pocketed the cash and moved on. So technically, we could free up that resource, and it could theoretically be used for anything. But obviously, it's in the best interest of the district to repair your rain gutters, or so to speak. And since the program, or since the project was kind of in process, you know, they issued you the insurance company issued you a check of like $7.5 million, like I was saying, but the total damages still haven't really been fully figured out. Like, you know, more damage was still being found. We didn't know where we were going to be at the total project. So that actually the whole storm damage issue will be resolved in 2024, fiscal year 2024. So that's a long way of saying, to boil it down to what's left over at the end of the year, and that's where your unassigned fund balance is. So when we're weighing how financially healthy is the district, we can compute a ratio and then be able to take that ratio and compare it to all the other school districts and figure out where you're at. So it's unassigned fund balance as a percentage of total general fund expenditures. Again, the general fund expenditures, that's what it takes to run the school district for a year. So we run this ratio, and it calculates down to that 37.6% at the very bottom. Okay, that's all well and good, but what does it actually mean for you? The general, I should say, I'll start with the district fund balance policy, which was adopted many years ago. You want to maintain an unassigned fund balance between 25 and 30%, so you're clearly at least meeting that, because that's a minimum, that's a floor. You'd want to start there. So you're definitely meeting your district policy. On average, other districts within Western Wisconsin here, they're anywhere between 26 to 30% is what we're normally seeing. That percentage has crept upwards in the last number of years just because a lot of COVID funding is still there, and then they're slowly spending that down. So that's where we're at on an average within the area, a geographic area. And then you're looking at an industry target. From an outside standpoint, like a CPA or a financial advisor, they're going to look what is your ratio and how does that compare to what we would expect. And typically within the industry, you want 25 to 33%, 3 months to 6 months, somewhere in that time frame, or that time frame of operating expenses to be considered financially healthy or fiscally solvent. So you're definitely meeting all of those criterias, and it does allow you a lot of benefits there to maintain that fund balance percentage. Obviously, you could come down a little bit, but what we start experiencing as far as benefits or cons at that point. So where you're at currently, you don't have to rely on any short-term borrowings. The main primary funding source is property taxes. So with the property tax collection schedule, a lot of the districts in the area actually have to short-term borrow and then incur $100,000 to $200,000 in interest every year just to short-term borrow and make summer payrolls. You're obviously not experiencing that here. It also allows you to have financing flexibility for any unexpected repairs and maintenance that might need to come up. You don't have to rely on issuing any debt in order to pay for the emergency fund. And then lastly, obviously, if you have long-term capital needs, you can then maybe self-fund some of that on the short term without needing to incur as much long-term debt going forward if you know what your project is going to be. So overall, I would say that from my perspective, 37.6%, which even though it does dip, if you compare that number to 2022, you added to your unassigned fund balance, but then obviously when you look at 2023's general fund expenditures, that crept up at a greater rate. So, but overall, 37.6% is fiscally healthy. You're operating well within your operating budget, so the district is doing a tremendous job here for 2023. The other number to just make note of in passing is the change in fund balance there. Although it does say 9.9 million, 7.5 million of that is those insurance proceeds, which is obviously not going to occur every single year. So you did still add to fund balance to the tune of 7.2 million or 7.4 million or 2.4 million, 2.4 million for the fiscal year 2023. Switching over to your.
Jonathan, I got a couple,
Yep.
couple questions for you. When we looked at our, part of the reason why our expenditures are up almost 8 million over the previous year is because of the insurance work that we had done. Is that correct?
That is going to be part of it, yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So you got 7.5 million in the other financing sources and uses. So that 7.5 million is the revenue coming in.
Mhm.
And yes, we compared that to an additional just over $5 million in insurance expenses as well.
Okay.
The repairs of those.
So of the 9.9 million, it's not necessarily that 7.5 is sitting in insurance money that's not expended. It would just be the 2.8 that's sitting in insurance money that's not expended.
Right. Correct.
So we did actually increase our actual fund balance by over $7 million. Non-insurance fund balance.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure, not the 2.2. All right.
Correct.
Thanks.
Looking at the rest of your funds then here on the next page. So these are the special revenue funds which are required to be spent required to be tracked by DPI in a separate fund. And they're supposed to be, they need to be a designated revenue source going in there to support these activities. So the Education Trust, that's your Fund 21. Fund 50 for your food service fund, and then your Fund 80 for education and recreation. So that's childcare, the adult ed, and then I believe the weight room community activities are all run out of Fund 80. So when we're looking at the special revenue funds in a school district setting, it's essentially the revenues should be supporting the expenses. So the charges for service, in order to use these services, should be at least cash flowing themselves. You want them to be breaking even or coming back at some sort of modest return. So if you have capital needs to support those in the future, those needs are being met. Excuse me. So you can see going forward, or from 2020 onwards, you can see that your fund balance is actually increasing. So you're meeting that objective. The only time that I really speak more on these is if they all of a sudden dip negative for any specific reason. Then there should be, something put in place to correct that. So the only one that was negative in the past was in 2020. You see your community ed and recreation. Well, the impact of COVID when we had to still essentially provide some of those services or still have expenses for those services, but you weren't collecting any revenues for childcare, for instance. So all of that has been remedied and is now working in a positive light there for you.
All right. Any other questions that anybody has?
I do have a quick question, Mr. President. What changed in the way we are accounting for the food service fund from 21 through the present?
In 2021, there would have been additional capital items that needed to be purchased in 2020 and 2021 that needed to be supported by food service lunches. And then the big change is during 2020, during COVID time periods, the food service basically completely turned into free revenue, essentially. So there was no paid lunch. It was completely covered by federal sources. So because of those changes, basically you had increased expenses in prior periods. So DPI doesn't require you to have a zero fund balance or a negative fund balance. It zeroes itself out. The general fund makes that coverage, and then the increased funding from the federal government through that child nutrition program, that's the federal component. That's the main driver of revenue into Fund 50. So it's not that we changed anything from an accounting standpoint. It's purely based on the operations. And from that standpoint, if DPI and the federal government will look at Fund 50, and they'll make sure that the price that you're charging for meals is a certain level, and if it ever gets too rich, by lack of a better term, they'll require you to spend that down or adjust prices downward in order to alleviate or essentially use up some of those resources. So that one is maintained and monitored by federal sources as well. Moving on to the debt service fund, you technically have two fund service funds available to you. You utilize Fund 39 for referendum debt. Any reserves that you're seeing here are budgeted and helped with your financial advisor. I believe you guys use Baird in order to help schedule out your debt payments. So these reserves are set up to be used for future payments. In 2023, the district paid $4.5 million in principal and $2.7 million in interest, and on all of the outstanding debt. I'll talk about a little bit what's left outstanding here in a few minutes. So just know that this is restricted for future debt service needs. The next item here is capital projects funds. So this one's obviously going to look a little different than it has in the past. During fiscal year 2023, the district issued bond anticipation notes, the $29 million that's set aside to be used for your capital improvement plan, repairs, maintenance, and expansion, all that I'm sure you're well aware of. So the site expansion remodel capital project fund itself is where all those reserves are being tracked and being managed. So any project costs related to that will be taken out of those proceeds going forward. Looking at long-term debt obligations, these are all the long-term debts that are the obligations of the district in total. The really important ones for you guys to take a look at are the top three lines, the GO bonds, GO notes, and then that bond anticipation note. So that's where you can see the $29 million is basically the only activity that you had for any issuances during the year. When in July of 2023, that was refunded, and so next year, that $29 million will just actually hop up to that top line there for you. So that's the one that'll increase, is the general obligation bonds. So to give you some context, the GO bonds consist of the $58 million issuance that's $58 million outstanding that's going to be good, or that's payable through 2036. The $3.35 million is outstanding, payable through 2027 is when all those obligations will fall off. $24 million is through 2043, and that $24 million that's there, that's the refunded portion of that bond anticipation note. So that's the longest debt that you have outstanding is through 2043 with the new debt that was just issued. And then lastly, the GO note, that $6.7 million that you see sitting there, that falls off through 2027. So the only other notes when you're looking at this and some numbers that might say, oh my gosh, where did this $12 million come from under that WRS pension liability? The quick explanation there is that the district is part of the WRS retirement system. So down at Madison, that's the comparison between all the WRS employees and the obligations that are outstanding compared to the resources that Madison has as investments to offset those. In the past, for the last 3 years, we've actually reported an asset, and now in 2023, due to economic conditions, it's just slightly underfunded. Normally, it's like 102% funded, which is one of the best in the entire nation. We're down to like 98.2% or something like that, just due to the investments on hand to offset that. So it's not a liability that the district would ever have to fund at this point. If it would start growing into 50% unfunded, heaven forbid that would happen. It's like to our neighbors to the south in the state of Illinois. But at this point, we don't have to worry about writing a check down there to cover that. Wait a year, I'm going to guess that investments will come back up, and we'll then be reporting a WRS asset again on our books. So when you see that one there, we're required to report it, obviously, because it is your contractual obligation, but it's not something you'd have to write a check for or plan for in the future. So when you're looking at what your total GO debt is, you do have a state limit of, it's 10% of all equalized value within the district. That's what the state legal limit would be. So theoretically, you could issue all the way up into that limit, but politically, you'd be very unpopular having hit that entirely. So when we're looking at school districts, I usually say anywhere between, as soon as you get upwards of 25 to 30% of your total limit. For reference, you're using that 15.5% of your total limit. You have some available borrowing capacity. So as soon as you get to that 25 to 30%, like I was saying, I would consider a district like that, in that situation, to be highly leveraged, carrying a lot of debt, because that obviously directly impacts where you would need to go with a school district levy, property tax levy. So all that being said, all good news. Really not any major red flags outside of, you know, a couple of things here or there just to comment on and just, you know, pay attention to where you're going with your budget, and you're doing a tremendous job here at the district. So any questions I can answer or comments I can address?
Anybody? Not seeing it. Just to clarify, up on number 4 there, that debt service fund. So we saw that go up, you know, by about 5 million compared to what it was the year before. But those are funds we're expecting to use to pay down the debt in the next year.
Correct. Yep. So due to the, you know, the cycle of when we actually budget for it versus when those bond payments are due, we always just obviously work very closely with Baird and figure out, okay, in November, when is my next debt payment and what does that need to be? So because we're crossing fiscal years, that's why it jumps up, is because you issued the new debt and you'd have to make a new payment on it in the next fiscal year. So we need to have those reserves set aside to meet that principal and interest payment.
Anything else? Otherwise, thank you very much for the report. Appreciate it, Jonathan.
Absolutely.
Always like to hear good news. Hopefully, you can stick with that next year.
I didn't clear the room entirely for you, though, so. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming. All right, community conversation design team update, Nick?
Yeah, just want to do a brief update. We had our very first design team meeting. Megan's on the committee, and so is Kate. Just want to give an update that it was a great group of folks that we have involved in it. They identified over 340 individuals to be a part of the big community conversation. So we're in the process right now of continuing to identify individuals and also getting the contact information of those individuals. A reminder that our big community conversation is April 4th, 5th, and 6th. There's information on our website, links on our website where people can start to RSVP. You're going to see a lot more information coming out about this over the next 2 months. But really looking forward to having this conversation and getting feedback from our community about what they want out of their schools and how we can help deliver that for them. So really looking forward to that.
So that's the first Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of April.
That is correct.
All right. Any questions? All right. Next up, the school board election update.
Absolutely. So just an update on the school board election. We did have we have 5 candidates running for 3 seats. This upcoming school board election on April 2nd. I think on Friday, there was a ballot draw, so that's the order in which the candidates will appear on the ballot. I think, Jamie, you were present for that along with 2 other witnesses. So you can see Bob Bauman, Randy Lawson, Kate Garza, Maria Rudy, and Molly Powers in the order of the ballot draw. And so that's how the ballot will appear. There is no primary, so the election will be held on April 2nd, coming up here in about 3 months. So good luck to everybody that's running.
Any questions? Seeing none, then staff family fun night. Andrea?
Yes, so just want to make you guys aware that Sunday, February 4th, we'll be having our third annual family fun night, I believe. Encourage you guys to come as board members. We had, I think, almost 400 people, 400 staff and their families come last year. It's a really fun night. We're going to be having a sign up for Hudson Lead members. Sometimes it's easier if you come that you are in charge of an activity or something. It kind of gives you something to specifically do with staff. We're doing everything from roller skating to face painting. We have crafts. We have, we're going to do make pom-poms and have snowball fights in the West Gym. So we do everything from littles and have movies.
Snow, right?
Yeah, if we had snow. Our theme for the year is going to be Ignite Your Health for our wellness challenge for this year. So it's kind of our kickoff to the next 35 days leading into spring break. So it's turned into a bigger event over the years, and it's really been fun, and it's been one that staff has specifically requested us to repeat. So we're excited.
Location?
At the high school, 4 to 6 on Sunday.
Okay. So I must have been on Eastern time. I had it 5 to 7, but you want people there at 4 o'clock.
I believe it's 4 to 6.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think we shifted a little earlier because we moved it to a Sunday night. And so we have food, free activities. All of it's free for our staff and their families.
So for those people that are football crazy, that is not a football Sunday.
It is not. It's the weekend after the Super Bowl. Yes.
Weekend before the Super Bowl.
The
Yeah.
weekend before. Okay, so
Yeah,
I knew
yeah.
it wasn't the Super
Between
Bowl
conference
weekend.
championships and Super Bowl. Not that anybody watches football around here.
One year it was the state. Our boys were at state for hockey, and we had it on the big screen going. So that
Cool.
was fun. And
Well,
We
let's hope we have
have
some
movies.
teams have stayed then. But,
Yeah, that
no,
time
it
of
sounds
year,
like a
or-
fun night, and I'm going to try and keep it reserved. So our young family members, like grandkids, welcome.
They sure are, and we have quite a few that come. We have a couple families that had multi-generations at the event, and that was a lot of fun.
Okay, good. All right, I'll try to get my grandkids up from Rochester then. All right, now, last up of reports, we just have the board member district activity recap. I don't know if Lynn and I were at the girls' hockey game. Of course, she's a hockey parent. It was parent night on Friday night. And I've seen Nick a couple times with both boys and girls basketball. And of course, we had the musical concert since our last board meeting as well. Anybody else? Okay. Very good. Moving on then, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items with language of expenditures that are on the screen.
I make a motion to move for the approval of the consent items and that the chief financial and operations officer be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $985,185.72.
Is there a second? Okay, we have our second. There is no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. I always like it when the number is under $1 million. It just sounds like we're being very austere. So, but we have some resignations, is that?
Some
or not?
retirements, yeah, some
rather?
big
Yes.
retirements, and I'm going to actually have Dave start it off.
Yeah, so one I wish we were not announcing, but very much want to congratulate Lisa Skoyan, the Assistant Director of Teaching and Learning, who will be retiring. Whenever I make a mistake, that means I didn't consult with Lisa. When I do something that we celebrate, that means I made sure to consult with Lisa. She is an amazing leader, has contributed in so many ways. Everything that we've accomplished in the world of teaching and learning, Lisa has been part of that. She's will be greatly missed. So if we could just have you not act on that, that would be great.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah.
A little too late, right? Kinda
It's too
have to-
late. We already did. We can't, yeah. Is there a motion for reconsideration?
Yeah, Lisa might not like that so much. And then several others. So last year we only had a couple retirements. This year we have a lot of big retirements. First up after Lisa is Steve Solom, a math teacher at the high school, 35 years of service in the Hudson School District. Kathy Shavy, 5th grade teacher at EP Rock, 23 years in the Hudson School District. Veronica Guzman, 5th grade at Rivercrest, 37 years of service in the district. So I know a couple years ago, the recognition banquet, she hit the 35, and we don't have that very often for teachers. So then we have Krista Anderson, speech and language pathologist, 27 years in the school district. Mark Randall is a Strive teacher at the high school, and he has 14 years of service. And then Mary Cormican, special ed teacher at EP Rock, just 2 years in Hudson, but multiple years in other positions in other districts. So those are between that group and the group we've recognized previously. It's going to be a really full recognition banquet, and that's super exciting.
And
we're-
that's on May 6th.
I believe so. I know we have the date reserved, and I believe Tim's been communicating it out. So hopefully,
Yeah,
yep,
that's what I got on my phone.
I will double check
Yeah,
and
but-
get back to you. But I believe, yeah, I know we have it booked, and we're already working on it.
Yeah, I think I did the math calculation. It's like, with those 5 retirements, it's like almost 150 years.
Yeah, just with them, and there was big ones. I mean, the high school. Yeah, there's quite a few ones with a lot of years of service
So-
that we're losing here. But a really nice thing. A lot of these people, majority of the retirees, are also participants in our veteran ambassadors, and are excited about that like soft landing transition where they're coming back. They're already committed to coming back and supporting our brand new teachers. So that's a pretty cool transition.
That is, that's excellent. Thank you, and I thank them for their service as well, and we'll thank them again in May. Next up, EP Rock Elementary Title I Plant. Dave.
Thank you. We'll keep this very brief. We presented on this just at the last meeting. So EP Rock is now participating in a school-wide Title I program, which is all of our other schools are in a targeted program. School-wide programs require board approval of the plan. The plan was summarized in the report. It is here in its full glory, a lot of detail. It was, like I said, summarized before, and most of the detail is represented in the district goals that we've looked at several times in the past.
Okay. And is this something we're required to make a motion to approve?
That is correct.
All right. I'll entertain such a motion right now. All right. We have a motion by Bob, second by Lynn. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And the Title I plan is approved. Is this an annual or a biannual thing that we have to do?
Annual.
Annual, all right, very good. So we'll see this, this time next year. Second reading of the 700 policy revisions. Nick?
These are the same policies that you saw at the last action meeting, and they also coincide with the same that you saw at the work session prior to that. So the administration's recommendation is to approve the policies as presented.
So moved.
Right. We have a motion, a second. Any further questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the second reading passes, and we are now through the 700 series. Then district library plan, Dave?
Yep, this will be another quick one. Jen Lotze and Sarah Engstrom presented. The entire media team worked hard on this plan. This is another required approval. This guides the work that the media specialists do at all levels. They provided a pretty detailed report just last month.
Yes, they did. And in there, they were talking about some of the ways that the district collaborates with the Hudson Library. So those, all of those are intended to continue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And anybody that has specific questions about that, they can see Dave or Jen, right?
Certainly.
And that's why Jen, being our IT person, it's more than just library. This is more than just getting rid of a bunch of old books. It's very integrated and,
Right, all
planned.
things media.
Yes. So is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right. Megan moved and Bob second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. And another statutory obligation accomplished. Next up, first reading of transportation policies.
If you have questions, I'm sure Andrew can answer them, but these are the same policies that you saw at the work session. Just getting our policies up to date so that we're through our rotation. So the administration's recommendation would be to approve the first reading of these couple of transportation policies.
Mr. President, move
Yes.
to approve the first reading of the transportation policies.
Second.
All right. We have motion by Lynn, second by Molly. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Next up, the delegate assembly resolutions.
This is as exciting as it gets.
Yes, this is what I've been waiting for all night long.
I know, for all you folks in the crowd. So we go through as an administrative team. This has been this is actually a pretty light year as it relates to resolutions for the delegate assembly. There aren't any on here that we wouldn't recommend the delegate approving. Sometimes we will go through, and I don't need to go through each and every one of these. Sometimes we go through and there'll be some that we would say,
Why we're not
why
approving.
we're not for it, and a lot of times it has a negative financial impact on our district based on our makeup and things along those lines. But I know Molly will be already fulfilling her duties as the alternate at the delegate assembly, and so.
And I'm the alternate to the alternate because I'm already on the committee, so I have to be at this assembly.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
But you
It's-
guys will have, this is extremely light compared to last year. Last year, there was 29 resolutions. Delegates started getting up and walking out in the middle of the meeting, seriously. We were going for 3.5 hours, and people just, we ended up having to quit the meeting because we lost a quorum. So this is a different year. As Nick said,
I think there's 11 of these.
yeah, there's only 11 this year, and 2 of them are actually conglomerates prepared by WASB, which is that whole situation where you're reviewing policies and just trying to update stuff and make it more current. And so, yeah, all I can say is at the resolution committee, we actually had a resolution committee member get up and leave. That that controversial resolution never made it to this list, so that's why there's really nothing to get too worked up about. But hopefully we're improving and moving forward. I mean, that's the idea. It's just hard. WASB is, such a diverse group, and for whatever reason, Milwaukee gets 2 people on this committee, and then it's interspersed throughout the whole. We get 2 for every, district? WASB district.
Yeah.
Yeah, region, I guess. I don't know if they call them districts or
I think
regions.
Milwaukee has 1 out of every 10 students in the state graduate from Milwaukee Public Schools.
Yeah. All I can say is that's been the fun of being on that committee, is talking to the folks from Milwaukee and just coming back and feeling how great it is to be from Hudson. Did I say that on camera? All right. No. All right, good. Is there a motion to approve the administration's recommendations to give Molly some guidance on how to vote?
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Yeah, the ayes have it.
There you go. Have fun, Molly.
Yeah. Next up is the contract to list the district office.
So this is the contract to list the district office for sale. This is as a result of our, we did not pass a referendum this spring. We did a post-referendum survey. The feedback we got from the community was to start jettisoning some district property and things along those lines before we go back and ask for a referendum again. So we will be, the recommendation, this is the same contract that you saw back in December at the work session. The recommendation from the administration is to list the property for sale here with Telus Real Estate and put it on the market so that we can get this sold. The district office will then be moving into the middle school, probably sometime about a year from now or so.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I will be recusing myself from this vote.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. So she's not going to participate in either the discussion or the vote. I think the most pertinent things of this listing contract is the fact that the asking price is just that, it's a list price, and so we could have people offer us more, less, whatever, but the point of getting somebody, a professional who knows commercial properties in detail, is to get the best price we can for our taxpayer, and so that listing price on this contract is $2.15 million, and we have a variable interest rate depending, or the commission, depending on if the commission is generated from the same realtor or from a different realty company, which is pretty standard.
This agreement's been reviewed by our attorney, and feel it's a very favorable agreement for the school district.
With that, is there anyone want to have any other questions of Nick or a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the contract to list the district office.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the listing contract signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. It's unanimously approved, and we do have our quorum of voting for that, so we got 4 votes despite the absences and the recusal. So with the next this is the determination on the open enrollment for the 24-25 school year. Now I got to get used to saying that, 24-25.
Yes, we're already looking at 24-25. So we talked about this at the work session where we're continuing our recommendation of the practice of, for regular ed purposes, having open spaces at all for K through 12. And then specific to student services will be Tara.
And doing the opposite in the world of special education, there will be 0 open spaces for our K-12, or pre-K-12 spots.
All right. So for special ed, there are no open enrollment spots. For non-special ed in the general would be that there's no restrictions.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean that we approve every single application, but
There's space.
there's
There's
space.
space, and with respect to elementary specifically, we don't place them until much later in the process. And so they are not guaranteed a particular school. They're guaranteed a spot in our
Right.
system.
Yeah, this is the first step in the process required by statute. It has to be done on an annual basis. Is there a motion to approve the administration's recommendation?
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second, and, yeah, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay, and the ayes have it. Now, last up, we have a question, is the bid pack. First bid pack on our reconstructions at North Hudson, EP Rock,
Yep.
and the middle school.
So, just to kind of go through this, what you have is a document put together by our construction manager. Bid Pack 1 only has one item in it for each of the three buildings. It's the backup generator, emergency generator, and the switchgear that connects the generator to the building. The reason why we had to put this as its own separate bid pack is because the lead time on this is a little over 12 months to get this. And so you can see we did get multiple bids on this, and this is literally just for the piece of equipment. It's not even installing the equipment. It has nothing to do with it. It's just you have to go through a vendor in order to secure the product. You can see the recommendation by Market and Johnson is, I believe it's Simon Electric for all three of the generators. We were under our projected budget for the two elementary ones and slightly over our projected budget for our middle school one. These generators are used they back up power for our coolers, refrigerators, related to food service. They will keep our heating system running in the case of a power outage in the winter so our buildings don't freeze. They also do life safety things like our emergency lighting and our servers and our ability to communicate in the building, but they do not back up the entire building. We couldn't just operate the building on these generators indefinitely, so
These are intended for emergency short-term.
these are emergency short-term use. Yep.
But we have to have them. It's kind of a necessary item for the entire length of the project, or pretty much like 90% of the length of it.
No, these are permanent. These are
permanent.
these are permanent. This is the new standard when you build buildings now. Is you have to have backup power for life safety.
Okay.
So
So we're
this is-
currently operating without?
The middle school currently has a generator that is about 30-some years old, kind of about on its last leg. And the two elementaries, because they were grandfathered in at the time, they do not have generators. So these will be new items for them to be able to have those things.
Very good. All right.
Any questions?
Any questions other than that? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve, and so we can get these ordered and they get here.
So moved.
All right, motion by Molly, second by Megan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and that motion is approved. And gosh, we ran out of items. I was hoping we'd have another closed session or something we could go into, but I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second by Lynn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.